Thank you all for being here tonight. On behalf of Elliott and his family and the campaign, keep on coming in. I'm going to get started, but y'all come on in and come up to the front. Make Elliott feel at home, comfortable, give him a little support here. So, such as it is, I'm going to be your master of ceremonies tonight. It's a short program, so put your socks up and stay with us. I've been asked to kind of introduce things and kick it off, but you know, since we're in an educated city like Austin, before we get down to politics, I want to start off with a short literary lesson. And I want to ask, how many of you know the origins of the word ignoramus? It turns out, if you don't know, it turns out that ignoramus was the title of a farcical play in 1615. And it was about a guy who was just sure that he was brilliant and always doing the right thing, but it turns out that he was kind of an ignorant blowhard and know nothing. And I am not a literary expert, but I do suspect, I'm not sure, but I suspect that our current congressman might just be an ignoramus. You know, it means in Latin, literally, the translation is, we know nothing, or one who knows nothing. And he certainly knows nothing about science and technology. He's the chairman of the Science and Technology Committee, but seems willfully proud to be ignorant about it. He knows nothing about science and technology. He knows nothing about healthcare, evidently. He knows nothing about climate change. He is proud to know nothing. And just this last week, or a couple of weeks ago, you know, he told us that the best place in the United States to get your news is from Donald Trump's Twitter feed. So I think that qualifies in a lot of ways as an ignoramus, and it's easy to make light of that. But in a time of ISIS and talk of internment camps, in a time when we just turned our back on the historic Paris Climate Accords, it reminds us that to be ignorant is not just a laughing matter, but is truly dangerous. Luckily for us, you know, we've got this whole passel of folks who want to do something, who are talking about making change or even running for office. And even more luckily for us, we've got somebody who's not just talking about it, but is willing to put himself and his family and his fortunes and his time on the line. I was a county commissioner down in Hayes County. You know, we're in Austin, but this is a big district, and they gave me a passport to come up today and talk to you guys. And over the course of the decade, I had the opportunity to work with Elliott on regional issues, on social justice, on transportation, on things that matter in the big picture, moral imperatives, as the preachers would say, and on little issues that matter to people every day. So Elliott has been in the vineyards a long time. He knows how the grapes are made. He didn't just show up to pick today. He's somebody that we can really count on. But of course, a lot of you here know him maybe even better than I do, or you wouldn't be here. So we've got a couple of folks, three folks, couples, how we say three in Hayes County, who are going to speak tonight. And first is somebody who's really a legend in her own right in terms of women's issues and social justice issues, not just in Travis County, but across this region, Margot Clark.
That's quite a stretch, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Especially on such a stormy evening. And thank you for your interest in this really important congressional race. It is clear, because of the number of people who want to be running against Lamar Smith, that there is a strong urge to get rid of a representative who absolutely does not represent the interests and values of most of his constituents. So I'm really glad that Elliott is one of those people, and we're going to get rid of this guy, this anti-science climate change denier. He destroys environmental protections, and he's absolutely opposed to all the progressive policies that we would like to see in place in our country. He's not good for our country. He's not good for Congressional District 21, and so we're going to get rid of him. But let me tell you why I'm supporting Elliott McFadden for this race, because I've known Elliott for more than a dozen years, ever since he was a manager for my city council campaign. And during that work, I got to see how really hardworking and even-keeled, much more even-keeled than I am, and well-organized and really smart he is, especially about campaign work. And yet in the years since then, I have been way more impressed by all the other things that I've seen. His work in campaigns for like the healthcare district and for affordable housing, his work for the Travis County Democrats, and his business ventures. You know, when he started Austin Car Share, that was our first car shares even before Car2Go. And he was addressing the thing that we grouse about most of all in Austin, which is traffic. And that's also one of our biggest environmental challenges in Austin. And his work for solutions for problems is what makes him eminently qualified to actually be in, representing this district, because he's not just up there. He's actually believes in finding solutions to problems. And his work in B-Cycle, which is, nationally known as one of the best bike sharing programs in the state, that is again addressing the problem of our parking and driving, and it's polluting our air. So he's been working for solutions. And I think that it would be wonderful if this district was actually represented by someone who, strongly believes and lives progressive values. He works for solutions to community problems, and he wants to make things better for everyone, not just big donors or, his friends in the lobby world. So I think it's about time that this district gets represented by somebody like that, and I hope you'll join me in supporting Elliott in every way possible in this important race. Thank you.
One thing I think it's fair to say about Elliott is that doing the right thing is literally part of his religion. It's a really deep commitment to him. And the other thing that's part of his religion, as far as I can tell, is bicycle riding. At least being involved in transportation solutions. And we've got somebody who's really been a leader in alternative transportation here in Austin, runs his own bicycle shop, and has been a leader across the city in finding fair ways for alternative transportation. Hill Abel, come on up and say a few words.
Hello, my name's Hill Abel, and I'm a bike guy. And that's one of the things that I like about Elliott. He's a bike guy too. And if you live in Texas, a lot of time bike guys are kind of on the fringe, or bike gals are on the fringe. My friend Allison is one of those bike gals. And I've had the great opportunity to know Elliott and work with him. I've known Elliott for probably 15 years. He started a blog that was a visionary blog here in Austin called Austin on Two Wheels. And that had a big influence on a lot of people, inspired a lot of people to take up bicycling as a lifestyle, to use a bicycle as a tool for transportation, for health and recreation. And Elliott has always had that vision. So over the course of the last 5 years, I've worked with Elliott on 3 different projects. One of them taking 2 very different, disparate organizations that had a membership base that didn't agree with each other. And Elliott and I shared a vision to take those 2 organizations and to meld them and to make them much stronger organizations. And I think that's the kind of guy that Elliott is. He brings people together. He can speak to the differences that we have in our hunkered down tribal mindsets. He can go out into those red districts and speak to people that don't understand us bike riding liberals here in Austin, because truly they think we are foreigners. They think we don't belong in this great state of Texas. But this is our state. Elliott and I are both Texans. Our families are Texans, and we believe in this great state. And one of the things that I admire most about Elliott is he has vision. He is an innovator. He came into Austin B-Cycle and he took a very daunting challenge to start up a program in a city that didn't know what the heck B-Cycle was, what a shared bicycle was all about, and he was relentless in his pursuit of making this system the best bike share program in the country. And that's where it is today, and it is on a trajectory of growth. So when Elliott talked about running for Congress, he reached out to the board and said, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do y'all think about that? And I think to a person, we said, that's absolutely amazing, Elliott. But in the back of our heads, we thought, that's absolutely crazy, Elliott. I mean, serious. Because this is what you call a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. To think that we could walk into all of these homes, all of these businesses, all over District 21, and tell a story that resonates with people, that says, this is our guy. This is the man that we want to have representing us in District 21. Because he has a vision to bring people together, to bring families together, to bring people together. All these tribes can come together because we are all Americans and we all share common values. And it's that loss of conversation, it's that loss of human connection that I think Elliott can bring back to the table, can bring back to the conversation, and that's why I'm supporting Elliott McFadden to run and win in District 21 in 2018.
Way back in the last century, I worked for a congressman out of Austin named Jake Pickle up in Washington, D.C., which means I've been around a really long time. And what I like about the next speaker is that he's one of the few guys anymore that can say he's been around as long as I have, or maybe even a little longer. I think when Kane ran against Abel for city council, David Butts was the first call he made. So it's David Warrior, it's my pleasure to introduce the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Austin politics, David Butts.
Well, Elliott certainly knows how to pick a day for an event, doesn't he? Starting off with a bang here, so to speak. When he called me and said, I'd like for you to, say something about me, I thought, well, gosh, I really want to get involved in all this, I don't know. But then I thought about what he had done, what he's meant to Austin, and I decided I had to do this. And so I'm here. And I want to just tell you a little bit about him, my observation of him. Someone said he's well organized, and that's very true, extremely well organized. I asked him to become the campaign manager to create the Travis County Healthcare District in 2004. We were starting out way behind in the polls. People didn't want to hear about it, another tax, all that kind of stuff. Of course, most people in Austin were already paying that tax. It was just the people outside of Austin that weren't paying the tax and still getting the service. Anyway, we put together a campaign, and he organized it. And, all I did was sit back and say, I think you could try to do this or something like that. He actually had to do it, and he did it, along with a lot of other people, but he made a real contribution. And he's one of the reasons we have a health care district in Travis County. And when we were shocked in November of 2012, when the affordable housing bonds that the city proposed, one of 12, went down to defeat. Shortly thereafter, I get a call from Elliott about trying to organize and set up an operation to put forth another bond proposal to the voters, which we did in 2013. And he masterfully pulled together a team of people and had an organized campaign. And we went from defeat in November of 2012 to the victory, a landslide, in November of 2013. And he was very, very instrumental in pulling that together. And that tells you where his heart is, and it's a heart that we need in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you, the guy we got up there right now, you know, if you wanted to hide something scientific from him, you just put in a 6th grade science book. He'd never find it, basically. He's an ignorant. If he had been there when Galileo proposed that the Earth wasn't actually the center of the universe or center of the solar system, he would have been trying to burn him. He'd been right there with him. He basically licks the hand that feeds him, which is the oil and gas industry, and he needs to be taken out. We need to get rid of him. What he's doing, and others like him, but he in particular, since he's chairman of the Science and Technology Committee, which is really incredible that someone like him who's so anti-science is chairman of this committee. What he's doing is actually a crime against humanity. The future will record those who stood in the way of trying to deal with this problem effectively and the cost that it's going to come to each of us and future generations if this is allowed to continue. Lamar Smith needs to go, and we need to do everything we can. If you want someone who's going to stand up for the right thing with absolute confidence that he will, then Elliott McFadden is that candidate.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to say that maybe there's a storm coming to District 21, and it started today. All right, dad joke is done. When I was a child, my grandfather, he was a giant in my life. He was a country doctor. He served a little community of about 2,000 people, and he didn't think it was right that you should mark up medicine. So he started a pharmacy in his own practice to sell medicine at cost. And my mother remembers patients coming to the door and delivering bags of vegetables as payment for their bill. He's an incredible guy, and he told me a story about when he first started his practice. He took over from a retiring doctor, and they went out on a house call. They had a patient who had an infection, and my grandfather pulls out of his bag this brand new medicine called penicillin. And they gave that medicine to the patient, and the patient got better a few days later, but as they were leaving, he looked over to the old doc, and that doc was crying. And he said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Because I'm thinking of all of the patients I lost over the years that I could have saved if I had had that medicine." And so when we have a congressman and a president who's attacking science, who's attacking the truth, who's attacking our democratic institutions, it isn't about politics, it's about people's lives, and it's got to stop now. He was an incredible guy. He taught me I could love Jesus and I could love science, and there was no contradiction in that. And he taught me, and he taught me that the best way to help our community is to understand the world, to look at it honestly, and to do it selflessly. To not approach things out of personal profit, but to see how you can improve your community. And so as a 25-year Austin resident, that is the way I've approached the work I've done. My wife Amy and my son Miles and daughter Claire, we've lived in the same neighborhood in South Austin. We've lived there the last 16 years near St. Elmo Elementary, where my kids went to school. It's our public school. Also has a stellar librarian. That community has been an anchor for us as I've done the work for almost 2 decades, fighting radical Republicans and championing progressive causes. You've already heard about the Travis County Healthcare District and the affordable housing bonds. Those were some of my proudest moments, but also building something from nothing. Austin B-Cycle to be one of the most successful bike share systems in the country. That's been incredible for me. When I worked on the affordable housing bonds, I worked at actually Foundation Communities, and I got to work with Walter Moreau. And he's not here, but I want to clap for him because he's an amazing guy. Walter has heart, but he also knows how to run a hell of an organization. And he taught me everything that I needed to know to run my own organization. And so when those bonds failed, we said, no, it is not right. It's not reflective of our community. And we're going to go out and we're going to tell the stories of all the people who are affected by the lack of affordable housing. And we went out and we won that campaign. And when I started Austin B-Cycle, I took those lessons, and not only to run a successful organization, but an organization that is looking towards our community. We were one of the first bike share organizations in the United States to serve low-income populations, partnering with the Housing Authority and Foundation Communities to bring bike share with $5 memberships to low-income folks. And so I have absolutely loved the work I do. I have never wanted to run for office before. So why am I doing this? Well, what is happening in Washington every day is threatening the work we do in Austin. We cannot live in a bubble anymore. We have to take these guys on. While I worked to expand health care, Lamar Smith votes to cut 23 million people off of health care. Yeah, that's right. While I worked to create thousands of homes for low-income folks, the Trump budget would threaten the existence of Meals on Wheels and Habitat for Humanity. While I'm trying to provide transportation choices so people have a different way to get around, we have an infrastructure bill that's essentially about tax cuts for toll road operators. So I can't sit around and do nothing. It's time to stand up and do something. And that is why I'm here today to officially announce that I am running against Lamar Smith for Texas 21. Now, I don't know if you all have looked at the map of this district. It is a big, hairy, gerrymandered, gross thing. It is a tough district. Lamar Smith has been choosing his voters instead of the voters getting to choose who their congressman is. And we need a tough fighter. I've been through a lot of political battles. I've been knocked down. I got back up with my integrity. I stood by what I believed in, and I think those are the kind of people we need in Washington today. Now, this is not a quixotic thing. We have a real chance to beat Smith. His percentages have been going down year over year, and if you look at 538 today, they posted a story. Democrats are now running, on average, 14 points better than the presidential vote last year. Donald Trump got 52% of the vote in District 21. If that trend holds, we're on our way to victory next year. So it's not enough to have a Democrat on the ballot. We also need a Democrat to roll up their sleeves and do the work in Washington. And so we need to take on this president who has obstructed justice, who is using his office as a brand play to enrich his family. And that is why I am calling today for Congress to begin impeachment proceedings so we can get to the bottom of this. But our democracy is at risk, and it's at risk in two ways. We have a rigged electoral system, and we have to put an end to partisan gerrymandering and cut the dark corporate money out of politics. And the other way we're threatened is by the great wealth inequity in this country. The work I have done in Austin is because I have seen what happens when we don't address this. People lose hope. And when I worked at Foundation Communities, I got to see what happens when you give people hope. It changes their lives, it makes them different people, it makes them true citizens of our community. And so we have to address wealth inequity. We have to make education, and especially higher education, low cost and free so it is not a debt machine anymore. We need to actually invest in our country with a real infrastructure program that is not just about fixing roads and bridges, but it is investing in transit, real choices in our community, and an energy grid that will bring us wealth in the 21st century. And finally, health care is not a luxury. It is a right, and it is time for Medicare for all to be enacted. So we can do this. We can do this. But I'm going to need your help. And many of you have already helped, and I really appreciate that. So as we get ready to head out, and the weather clears, I ask you to join me in this campaign. The change we need begins here. Join me. Thank you.